This looks interesting.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. This table is actually made of sulfur concrete, and sulfur is the very topic that is at the forefront of the industry. It's at the forefront of the industry from your side as a ship owner, from our side as a producer, manufacturer and deliverer of fuels.
If we could use all the sulfur we're producing for football tables, it would be
great.
a very good thing, yeah.
It would be great. We are 16 months away from 1st of January 2020. How do you feel this industry is ready?
Well, we still have a lot of questions, and there's still a lot of things we are not sure how they're going to work, and I'm sure you could help us.
It's interesting because when I talk to industry stakeholders, I always think about this industry in two fashions. There are going to be companies like yours, like Hapag-Lloyd, that are ready by choice. But there's loads of companies out there that are going to be ready by default, because at the end of the day, if you haven't made any plans, then, you know, the only thing they're going to use is 0.5 sulfur compliant fuels.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the statistics, we can see that today there are about 1,000 ships fit with scrubbers, about, 300 ships fit with LNG, or using LNG as a fuel. And so that tells me that 95% of the industry is going to use 0.5 sulfur compliant fuel.
That's about right. Yeah. I think for the container industry, that is definitely a big issue. Good shot. We don't know what the fuel's going to cost us. And this is, of course, we're going to have to start buying fuel sometime in the fourth quarter of next year.
Okay. So the things that we've done from an ExxonMobil standpoint is we started actually looking at 0.5 sulfur compliant fuels, probably as early as 2015. Now, do I have the solution for the whole industry? No. I have a solution for all the customers that we've been working with.
We've also been putting a lot of resources into understanding what our options are. And obviously we won't be able to change the majority of our fleet to scrubber or LNG by 2020. Good shot. We have the advantage of having 17 so-called LNG-ready ships, but they're not really a short-term solution because we really don't know about the availability of LNG. So we are having to plan to work with compliant fuel in the initial phase. And as I said, we don't know what that's going to cost us. We're looking at additional cost on the 4 million tons of maybe $800, $900 million a year, which is of course a really big issue.
6 months ago, everyone was talking about availability.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that I hear most about is compatibility. And in that sense, ExxonMobil patented technology has helped us in designing these fuels in order to have the highest level of compatibility possible. Now, as you know, compatibility is a compromise. It's always interesting for me that in your business, you have sister ships. In the refining industry, there are no sister refineries. So that makes the whole thing much more challenging.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, of course, we were very concerned about the availability of the fuel. I think, as we once said, the IMO can't want the world economy to stop.
Absolutely, yeah.
So obviously availability was the first big question we had. Hey,
good goal.
Availability was the first big question we had, and also what you mentioned about the compatibility of the fuel, which still, honestly, still seems to be a problem, because we call at probably most ports in the world, or most of the major container ports in the world, and we need to have a secure availability of fuel.
Yeah.
And of course, the whole discussion around scrubbers is not just around the technology of the scrubber and whether it makes sense and how it's going to work and what they're going to cost, but also will the fuel be available for the scrubbers, for the scrubber-equipped ships?
Oh, the fuel oil?
Yeah, heavy fuel oil. Because if only, as you say, 3-5% of ships are equipped with scrubbers, will there be enough demand to provide enough high sulfur fuel? For us, it's not important whether it's coming out of the refinery. We need a bunker barge in
place.
In Rotterdam, in Singapore, in the other major ports, providing ships which are equipped with scrubbers with the necessary fuel types.
And that's the reason why.
And that is a bit of a challenge.
It is a challenge, and that's the reason why when someone asks me, okay, Luca, I'm going to have scrubbers installed, my advice is always, guys, prepare your logistics in the best way possible. Interesting thing for me, how did How did you react when the IMO made the announcement?
We thought having 17 LNG-ready big ships, the biggest ships in our fleet, we were reasonably well prepared.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, converting the ships to LNG is not as simple as it sounds,
Okay.
because the LNG availability is also not there yet. So we've been, over the last couple of years, we've been much more involved looking at scrubbers and the compliant fuel.
Yeah.
And our concerns there, as I said, we don't really know what the compliant fuel is going to cost, and nobody really likes the idea of scrubbers. You know, they're probably a good investment if the premium between high sulfur and low sulfur is high.
Yeah.
But of course we don't know those figures exactly.
Okay.
And as I say, nobody really likes scrubbers from a technology point of view.
Yeah, it's a challenging technology, but so it's interesting because you sound very much aligned with the way I think about this. So it's a multi-fuel future, and therefore companies need to provide multi-fuel solution, and you know, someone like ExxonMobil can do that because of diversity of your fleet, diversity of your needs. The other interesting thing for me is that at the end of the day, there are companies like yourself, and you will be compliant because of the reputation, because of the type of company you are. How do you see compliance and enforcement across the industry? Is that something that worries you?
Yes, that's a big challenge. I mean, we saw what happened in the SACAs when we started in the ACAs with the environmental fuel, with the 0.1. And when you just look at the maths, the big ship, one of our big ships between Asia and Europe, consumes between 3,000 and 4,000 tons each way.
Yeah.
So if I can just do the maths for a second, if the premium between high sulfur and low sulfur is something like $200, that could be $800,000 difference.
Yeah.
And if the fine for not being compliant is $50,
then
that's not going to do it.
No, absolutely.
So that there has to be a good understanding of the compliance regime. As you said, companies like Hapag-Lloyd will have to comply.
Yeah.
I mean, we would do that. We would definitely do that. Our environmental DNA is there. We know what we have to do. But of course, it has to be a level playing field.
Totally agree.
We have to make sure there's a clear understanding of compliance.
I'm really proud to say that the fuels we're going to put in the market are going to be ISO 8217 2017 compliant. And we stand behind the quality of our fuels. But I agree with you, level playing field is a must for this industry.
It's very good for us to hear that you will have compatible fuels available in those ports. But what about the other ports we have to call?
I know, and that's a challenge.
This is a big issue for us. We don't have only ships which can do a complete round trip with one tank of fuel. We have to refuel in certain parts of the world. And if the fuels are not compatible, as we've seen recently because of this contamination issue, I think coming out of Houston, that can be a real danger for the shipping.
Oh, absolutely. So for me, the other thing that I always talk about, or is always interesting for me, is that buying fuel is not gonna be as simple as we know it. It could go. But also, I think that a lot of emphasis will go back again onto onboard fuel handling and management of tanks and management and segregations. And you know, you got experience of this given how much work we've done together on fuels like HDME 50. And it's spending time, technical team to technical team, having those discussions and understanding onboard fuel handling and treatment of fuels. So the way I see this, the days of picking up the phone and calling for a 500 metric ton of fuel are long gone. For us, for ExxonMobil, integrity is paramount. It's
good to hear you're going to have compatible fuel available. It'd be even better to hear that you'd have it in more ports, although the industry was agreeing on a standard for compatible fuels. Yeah, but the problem with the standards is, as I said, there are more than 600 refineries around the world. Every refinery is different in configuration. Wow! In configuration, in type of crude they use. So on one end, I can see your point. On the other end, restricting the specifications will make fuel availability even more challenging. So it doesn't need to be the same. It just needs to be compatible.
Yeah, but compatibility, it goes back to chemistry.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
As I said, and I'm a chemist.
Okay, so you lose me there.
No, but normally the way I think about fuels is aromatic and paraffinic. Aromatic, you have increased compatibility, but you have not as good burning properties. Paraffinic is the other way around. So that's the reason why, as I said, we spend so much time looking at balancing those two factors in our fuels. So how do you see the future unveiling, Tony?
There's one similarity between refineries and ships is that they last for a long time.
Yes, yes.
And the ships we will be building in the next couple of years, or looking at building, will be around until 2050.
Yes.
Our ships tend to run 25 years. They're going to be around until 2050. And in 2050, there's another important target set by the IMO about CO2 emissions.
Yes. Well, and it's interesting because CO2 is key, but it's the overall greenhouse gases management. So, I mean, you know the challenges with the EEDI, which is a step in that direction. But now IMO next target is indeed the overall management of greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big target. It's a very ambitious target, but and it's very good for an industry that somehow has always been slow in movement.
You're talking about the oil industry or the shipping industry?
Well, I talk about the overall stakeholders, actually. I think it's a good point.
Yeah, I think because both have not been that quick to adapt to change.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
Yep. And of course, LNG is not going to do it. That's the surprising thing. But it's not going to do the job after 2050. So at the same time as building or looking for LNG solutions, we're also going to have to look for longer-term solutions to reduce greenhouse gases.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and again, all of these, I mean, we talk about fuels, but the other important thing for us is that once you've chosen your fuels, then you'll have to choose the adequate lubricant. And that's, again, where we spend quite a lot of money and time looking at lubricants for the future, lubricants for vessels that are going to use scrubbers and fuel oil, vessels that are going to use the new 0.5 fuels. So all of that goes hand in hand. And as I said, we focus on fuels, but fuels and lubricants go together.
Of course. Oh.
I've lost goal how many times you scored.
I lost count as well.
But great game, great talking to you, and thank you very much.
Okay, pleasure. Thank you.